I want to be honest with you all right out the jump. I've been putting this video off. I've been talking about an Undertale project for quite a while now, as some of y'all may know, maybe for the better part of like 2 years, I'd say. I even put off actually playing Undertale for like ages. I think I actually sat down and finished the damn thing for real, like 8 whole years after it actually came out. And make no mistake, I always figured that this game was going to be something special, and I thought it was going to be more and more special the longer I waited to immerse myself in the game and immerse myself in this project. And it was special. It was very special to me, and to the millions of people who have also played this game in pretty much the same way, actually. I really have nothing original to add to the conversation about this game. I have nothing to say about this that you have not already heard somebody say, or that you do not already feel if you have actually played this game. And if you have not played this game, this game has proliferated itself so widely through, fan tributes, let's plays, song covers, videos, memes, analyses, essays, fucking fan mods. So even if you haven't played this, you are probably casually familiar with what it's all about and why it's important. And believe me, those people do exist. For those reasons, I seriously believed that for 10 whole years, it's almost 10 years since this game came out, that I have nothing original to contribute to this. But that's not true, is it? Everybody experiences art in a different way, and my thoughts and my feelings might be similar to what you feel already, but if they sync up one for one, if I express them in the exact same way, then that is shocking. One of us is lying, or stealing, or both. My voice and my mind on this subject are not exactly prominent in this space, let's be honest. But as Toby Fox continues his creative work with Deltarune, and continues to shake the gaming landscape and pop culture landscape, I can't help but feel that my heart's just too deep into this to back out now. I love Undertale. I think it's one of the best designed games I have ever seen. Honestly, certainly one of the funniest, and easily one of the deepest and most considered Ludo narratives of its class. It is an artistic achievement, and maybe that's laying it on a bit too thick, but that happens to be how I feel, so that's what I'm going to call it. I honestly can't believe that I went so long in my life without playing this foundational indie title, but I don't think I regret that fact, because being touched by this game so late after its heyday really demonstrated very strongly to me how good it really is. It wasn't just like, a pet favorite indie game for me, like it was for a lot of people. This was like a top shelf indie game to bust out for special occasions. I found this game so compelling that I played it back to back to back with the first 2 chapters of Deltarune, which, even in its infancy, has me deeply impressed and very invested. I strongly feel, even not having played the recently dropped chapters 3 and 4, that Deltarune has the potential, when it's finished, to create just as big a splash in the gaming world as Undertale did when it was released. This new project, which is Toby Fox's real dream project, by his own admission, will likely capture a whole new generation of fans who never bothered with Undertale at all. And I realized something. That's who this video is for. Deltarune is now currently underway, and we can definitively see some aspects of Undertale which Fox considers to be that game's true creative legacy. The through lines between one title and another become more and more tangible with each new chapter. The matter of narrative continuity between the titles is still up in the air, let's say, but for those who are curious about the bones of Deltarune, about the foundation upon which that game will shine so brightly, then allow me to explain. You can play Deltarune without knowing the story of Undertale, that's true, but you cannot really fully appreciate Deltarune as a work of art without following the long shadow cast by its predecessor, and beholding yourself how magnificently it blot out the sun. I first rolled credits on Undertale in 2023, but I actually picked it up within the first few months of release. Everyone was talking about it at the time, and I just had to see what it was all about. I remember not really vibing with the format right away. I wasn't much of an RPG person at the time, especially when it came to Undertale's specific retro RPG style. Undertale is of a lineage that back in 2015, I barely really knew existed. Toby Fox cites Nintendo's Earthbound as being the explicit foundation for Undertale's mechanical rule set. You've got the top-down 2D overworld, filled with puzzles and traversal hazards, done in a pixel art style with limited colors, text boxes, no spoken dialogue. It was a style of game that, at the time, I knew was out there. I just never sought them out for a long time. If anything, a lot of my points of reference for the music and the visual style came from early Pokemon games. The chiptune sounds of the first generation and the overly brassy sounds of the third generation in particular. These stylistic elements, though, were a big part of, like, my internal vocabulary for, like, what appears in video games, if that makes sense. It was such that at 17, Undertale didn't feel like retro to me at all. Its timeless style and a modern sense of writing and design didn't register to me. At 27, I'm kind of amazed at what Undertale is doing with its retro style because it's making an artifact of itself. So Earthbound is Undertale's closest blood or relative, basically its parent when it comes to RPG design. It isn't just the game formats that Undertale borrows too. A lot of tonal elements directly cross over into Fox's title. Several direct references to the Earthbound games, or Mother as it's alternatively titled, like kids with striped shirts, goofy and comical enemy designs, the Nobody Came motif, appear pretty blatantly, like, on the surface. There are more references, though, that are only visible in the long hours of play, like the way the game reiterates the separation between player and protagonist, the hyper-disturbing final boss fight who is once an innocent child like you, and then there's the character who messes with the timeline for funsies. The first game that Fox ever made, I worked on as a game developer, was a Earthbound ROM hack, shown here. And he did that, like, even before he was composing professionally, too. Fox made the music for both Deltarune and Undertale, and Earthbound was definitely an influence on that music, along with the Toho games and the classic Final Fantasy titles. Now, while Deltarune definitely takes after all of Fox's influence in a pretty heady mix, it's pretty easy to see that now, Earthbound's imprint comes through very, very strongly in terms of raw gameplay here back in Undertale. Now, the first thing that happens in Undertale, after naming your character and the opening cinematic exposition, is a little false tutorial that shows off the bullet hell portion of the combat system. You're swiftly rescued in a dot by a kind woman named Toriel. As you get your taste for random encounters and puzzles, Toriel goes out of her way to protect you, scaring off enemies and literally holding your hand through certain zones, and frankly very, very easy puzzles. It's really endearing and pretty funny. If you're the kind of person who wishes you could just play the damn game already, the game is showing you that... Wait, chat. Oh my god. It's been fucking 10 years. How have I never got that until right now? Are you fucking serious? I'm sorry, I had to stop reading because of that shit. I didn't know! I didn't register that even a little bit. No! No, God, no, I didn't know, I swear. I wrote this entire fucking script, and that never registered to me. Anyway, back to the script, I guess. The shit with Toriel is really funny. It's very keeping with the tonal similarities to Earthbound, where you're fighting animated taxi cabs and street signs. You are shown that you really should have some patience for how this game is gonna put you through it, you know? You've gotta, like, let the comedy do its thing, you gotta accept the narrative flow, and you gotta, like, you know, let go of the controller for a second to just let the shit happen to you. It's gonna be silly. This is what you signed up for. It is very effective to teach this way, through, you know, little subtle jokes like that, since, in general, humor is a great way to invite somebody to learn what you're trying to teach. This is why my work is beloved by dozens. It's a good section, anyway, because it teaches not just the game mechanics, but it also acclimates to you to what kind of role-playing you're going to be doing in this RPG. Take the first mini-boss, a sad sack little ghost boy named Napstablook. You may have killed frogs and jello monsters up to this point without a second thought, like you would in any RPG, but would you really kill this poor guy? I mean, look at his droopy little face. You may choose to defeat Napstablook with non-violent means, which awards you no EXP, but it is a perfectly valid way to play through the entire game. The pacifist option wouldn't matter so much, however, if everyone you're up against weren't so funny, cute, and memorable. Even a small potato, like this friendly ghost. This matters, because you will not be staying with Toriel forever. As doting as she is, as tasty as her butterscotch cinnamon pie may sound, and I really want to try one sometime, she will fight to prevent you from venturing out into the world of monsters outside of the ruins. She is getting tired of seeing human children wander out into the world and die. She is practically weeping while you fight her, begging for you to either fight back or surrender if you insist on confronting her passively. Now, when I first played this game, when I first touched it, I took this insistence that you were supposed to fight her. There was no way around violence this time. I was mistaken, and her death was incredibly shocking to me. By design, actually, as your last few hits do triple damage, just to make the final few blows feel even more gut-wrenching. I was fucking cooked when this happened. It was really, really sad, so I went and restarted the entire game on a new save file just to commit to non-violence. Whether Toriel lives or dies, on the other side is Flowey. Flowey is the character what kills you during the fake tutorial designed to kill you, trying to trick you into running into the damaging Flight's pellets, finally trapping you in a move that's impossible to dodge. He's a friendly, happy golden flower at first, but when he goes mask off, his face contorts into some really wicked expressions, revealing a deeply sinister intent underneath it all. He kind of comes off as like a one-off joke character, but that is not the case. He has some obvious meta-knowledge about this game as a whole, and he appears even after Toriel to remind you that no, he's gonna stick around with you. He's gonna haunt this narrative. The first time I saw him, after killing Toriel, he kind of guilt-tripped me and egged me on a little bit. He said some shit like it's kill or be killed out there. But when I came back to him on a reset, I expected something different when I defeated Toriel passively. And I got something different, just not what I expected. He knows exactly what you just did. He knows that you reset the game, and he tips off that return to older save states is an actual tangible power within the game world. He posits flat out that you killed Toriel, felt bad, then turned back time to undo this. What the fuck, right? And this is where I fell off at the game. When I played it 10 years ago, which is right at the title card, and that really sucks. And the thing is, I never had a game, talk straight to me so pointedly before. I was pretty, shaken by that experience. So, I closed my laptop and decided I'd come back to the game in, a few months, after I had, processed what I just witnessed. I'm sad to say that I delayed myself for some pretty petty reasons. In the wake of Undertale's explosion of popularity was a wide swath of memes and the emergence of a pretty frustrating fanbase. There'd be discourse about the game's endings, tons of spoilers and fan art and discussions, and some really bizarre sexualization of certain characters. It was too much for me to deal with back then, and it was kind of inescapable. I always feel kind of bad when I say that the fans of a given work pushed me away from it, because it's not, always the media's fault that the fans are bad. Bad fans are everywhere. Everything's got bad fans. However, I have disavowed certain media for having a fan base that just is really, really poisoned by their interaction with that certain media. Even some things that I liked, that fandom would, proliferate and spread, and it would change the way that people would interact with, my own content and my own art, which has nothing to do, usually, with shit like Undertale, or Welcome to Night Vale, or, most relevant to our discussion today, Homestuck. Now, I I have not read Homestuck even a little bit. I honestly have better things to do with 400 hours, so I chose not to do it for this project. For those who don't know, and I truly do envy you, Homestuck is a multimedia webcomic that ran from 2009 to 2016. It includes Flash media, chat logs, browser games, and a collection of songs composed by one Toby Fox. It's astoundingly long for what it is. Like, it's in the fucking, 1 million word range. And I won't bother explaining the plot because I am poorly equipped to do so, but it is notoriously non-linear, nonsensical, and covers a wide breadth of characters and subplots across its canonical timeline. Its devoted fanbase was pretty notorious in the early days of Tumblr, circa the early 2010s, reveling in what has been retroactively looked at as the lol random era of posting. I never really liked Homestuck. I don't know if that's controversial to say or not, but I've had people in my life tell me that I should read this, and I always get the feeling that it's because they want to hurt me. That said, a complete history of Undertale has to at least acknowledge that Homestuck is a part of that history. Not only does Homestuck contain an early version of Megalovania, one of the most famous songs used in Undertale, but allegedly it also has a song that Toby Fox contributed to Pokemon Sword and Shield, or at least there was a draft for a Homestuck fan song that he once made that got turned into that song used in a fucking Pokemon game. Fox's connection to Homestuck and its creator Andrew Hussey was apparently a huge contributing factor to Undertale's boom of popularity back on Tumblr. And this was back when the home of the Homestuck fandom still contained, significant tastemakers across all social media and pop culture. It's even said that Fox wrote Undertale while still living in Hussey's basement, while Homestuck was still running. Even the fucking Scott Pilgrim guy has spoken on Homestuck. Homestuck is, in a way, another one of Undertale's parents, like Earthbound. Although this one, people might choose to disown. Now, the pop culture phenomenon that surrounded Undertale was very significant, in a very similar way that Homestuck experienced. If you were there in, 2015, 2016, it was extremely easy to connect the two fan bases and the two media together. Even without, knowing the, background here. Because I didn't know this for a very, very long time myself. It was just impossible to escape the images and iconography and characters of these two media. Characters especially. Even today, if a character is of pale or grayish complexion with what looks like two orange horns, people will cry Homestuck at them. They will even cry Homestuck at fucking Zagreus Hades. And no characters truly embody Undertale's heyday or embody this phenomenon like the two that the game introduces next. Undertale has, if you've been in the indie RPG space for a while, what seem like completely off-the-shelf characters. Toriel is a big, gentle mama. Undyne is a disaster lesbian. Alphys is an oh golly oh gosh nerd girl. Sans and Papyrus are no different, really. They are blatantly designed to complement each other. One is red, tall and lanky, oblivious and overstated. The other is blue, squat, sarcastic, and easygoing. What's great about them, though, is that not only do they have a lot more going on with them under the surface level tropes, like all of Undertale's major characters, honestly, also a whole bunch of these characters were really ahead of the curve in many, many, many ways. These characters have all been super, super memified so aggressively in the wake of this game's initial popularity, such that most of the main cast in general appears in cameo roles, even in fucking Deltarune. Of all of Undertale's strengths, I do strongly believe that the character writing is the strongest of all. The entire game even fucking pivots around it. Your choice to play violently or not hinges on whether or not Toby Fox can convince you that these collections of pixels are worthy of your mercy, or even your affection. The game is structured in such a way that each character gets their own little, domain of sorts, with the game divided into regions that serve to characterize and explore each major character. Toriel gets the ruins, but Sans and Papyrus get the Snowdin Forest. Undyne later on pursues you through the waterfall caves, and Alphys blows up your phone during the Hotland and Core sections. Papyrus and Undyne even have post-battle hangout sessions, each to their own, rewarding the player for sparing them, and giving them a chance to express themselves and endear the player to them. Alphys doesn't get a scene like this until the true pacifist post-game, because by the time her region is concluded, the game is intent on tying its story threads together and funneling you towards the climax. But the domain and boss structure is an excellent pacing device all around. It allows each character to shine and express their strengths without overstaying their welcome. And the order in which each character is introduced allows each of them to contribute something unique to the story, in just the right order, right when the story needs them to. For example, it's frankly pretty genius to introduce Sans and Papyrus immediately after the tutorial. You get this sad goodbye tutorial, and then you get Flowey taunting you, and then a handshake break from Sans is like the perfect thing to lighten up the mood. This game and this world are meant to thrive off comedy. We're meant to have fun. We're meant to be endeared to this world and to treat its inhabitants with a certain degree of fondness and sympathy. We are told that the outside world is dangerous, but the first thing that Sans does is hide you from his brother, who's dead set on delivering a human to his king as a prize. The ineptitude on display is immediately apparent. Sans straight up points at the conspicuously shaped lamp you're hiding behind, and Papyrus does nothing about it. And then Sans looks into the camera and makes skeleton puns. As memeified as they are, as tired you might be of seeing these characters, like, make no mistake, they're both hilarious. They make a fantastic comedy duo. Papyrus is such an over-expressive straight man, while Sans delivers his jokes so nonchalantly by contrast. And Papyrus is a really great first antagonist. Sans reminds you that even while he's failing to catch you, he's having just as much fun as you are. All his puzzles and traps are just laughably easy, or he just gives the solutions away by mistake. If you've noticed a pattern with how Toriel handled the puzzles, you'd be correct. Even later, there's going to be a kid who follows you around through Undyne's zone, who protects you from Undyne in certain scripted moments. Even Alphys will give you the tech to survive Minotaur's traps just in the nick of time, every time. These moments are always really interesting, also, because they abruptly yank away the player's assumed, control and agency, just for a little moment for the NPCs to express themselves. When Papyrus walks through his floor puzzle and leaves the exact solution with his footprints, he's doing so because he's earnest to a fault and always wants to be helpful even to his enemies. When Undyne holds off her assault because a young monster would get hurt, it shows that she cares more about protecting her people than she does about killing you. These little moments of sincerity that serve to comedically or dramatically showcase the power of friendship or whatever, but they're big steps in getting the player to think of these cartoons as actual people. Back to Papyrus. Through all his posturing and fumbling, you see little cracks in his facade. As funny as the guy is, time spent vanquishing his dastardly puzzles reveals a guy who doesn't have many friends, who's oblivious to just how lonely he really is. His boss encounter comes after you've toured his hometown, where not a lot of folks have much to say about the big guy. He doesn't seem all that burdened by this fact, shockingly. Dude has a race car bed and wrote "cool dude" on a I'm sorry, I'm misrepresenting things. He got a shirt that says "dude" and then wrote "cool" on it to make it say "cool dude." He is just a little pathetic, but you can't deny that he is living his best life. The thematic resolution for him, if you didn't kill him anyway, is him taking you to a date to his room, where he rejects you and then gives you his phone number. All in all, his character arc ends up being pretty flat, but everything you learn about Papyrus, every layer that you peel back, reveals some hidden depth, part of what makes him so beloved. And it's this strength of writing and command of tone that carries the game for so many people. Through the ruins and the snow zones, the tone is very light and comedic throughout. You encounter multiple dogs in between encounters with Papyrus, each of whom you have the option to defeat by getting close enough to pet them. After Snowdin, though, after Papyrus, comes the waterfall zone, where the game decides to rein it in a little bit and actually start telling the story. There is an immediate tone shift apparent in the aesthetic here, where the cliffs leading to Snowdin had muted colors, a lot of like light purples and whites of the snow. But it had a big wide space suggested by the background. The waterfall has no background, putting you in near blackness. It makes up for this fact with contrast, adding little pops of color with flowers, glowing rocks, and ancient writings on the wall, adding eerie splashes of blue and pink. In case you forgot, you're trapped underground. The actual plot of Undertale is delivered in such an expertly crafted way, and I love so damn much how it sets up expectations for things that it only follows up much later with surprising amounts of sincerity and emotion. The opening slide set the basic setup. The world once had humans and monsters in it. There was a big war, the monsters were sealed underground with a magical barrier. Whoopsie daisy, you just fell down there. And the game doesn't really explain any more of this history, nor explore its implications, for like 2 whole zones in about 3 whole hours. Your human character is a toddler, right? The character that you would play as in this game is in fact, like, 5 years old or something like that? Your character is baby. When humans and monsters fought, the writing tells us, the humans overpowered monsters with the power of their souls. Monster souls are much weaker than humans by comparison. The magical barrier that sealed the monsters underground was erected in the first place through the power of human souls. One can only pass through it if they possess 1 human soul and 1 monster soul. But a being with the power of 7 human souls altogether can destroy the barrier entirely. King Asgore, ruler of the monsters, has 6 in his possession. Yours will make the 7th. This is definitely a good sign to watch your back a little bit, but the writing goes on to say that a monster who can harness all 7 souls will become no less than an abomination. A horror beyond all reckoning, with the power to wipe out humanity. Now, someone should probably do something about that, but more impactful in this section is the stuff with the echo flowers. All the way through the waterfall caves are these little blue flowers that repeat the words of monsters who were here last. You hear passing conversations about yearning for the surface, wishing on glowing rocks in the cave ceiling like they're stars, longing to see the true night sky someday. The music of this section may be a bit much, but the words here are just so damn good. Humanizing the monsters on a broad scale, the way the writing does for Papyrus on an individual scale. And you only have 1 consistent obstacle in this zone, hampering your progress and disrupting your immersion. Undyne. Undyne is the captain of Asgore's royal guard, and she steps in to do what Papyrus could not, which is bringing your soul to Asgore. She is a relentless armored gargoyle for much of the time, barely saying a word as she clanks towards you threateningly. She is so threatening that on first encountering her, you think she might really attack a monster kid just to get to you. And when she takes off her helmet and fights you for real, she exclaims that the hopes and dreams of the monsters are all that matter to her. She is actually so passionate about this pursuit that she can literally will herself back from the dead, a power similar to your own ability to reset the game and avoid death yourself. Remember this. Without a sympathetic connection to this outcome, without understanding what it means for the monsters to be trapped, as cartoonish as they all are, then this might feel a bit forced. But it doesn't. The game has earned this, and Undyne comes off as a believable character with a strong passion for freedom and justice for her people. However, no character in this game is 100% serious, and after successfully outrunning Undyne, you're allowed to return to her house for some quality time with her. Papyrus even convinces her to try and make friends with you, which she takes as a challenge, and she goes about it in hilariously destructive ways. She hosts guests and cooks like she's riding into battle, and she nearly burns her house down trying to cook a big-ass pot of spaghetti. She's still very, very goofy, y'all, but not without her own depths. The cooking lesson she gives you is how she spends time with Papyrus, who is technically a guard under her command, but she can't bring herself to take him into battle. Not because he sucks or anything, but because she recognizes that he's just too innocent and sweet for the task, and all she wants is a life better than battle for the poor guy. Papyrus is, through and through, a joke character, but through your actions with him and Sans and Undyne, you see that he's got plenty of layers to him. Undyne is a little bit different, though. though. She starts as a scary armored Terminator, driven to claim your soul at all costs for a deeply tragic but sympathetic reason, but only after you see these depths and these serious parts. After all that is resolved, then you get the jokes, then the edges get softened. So by that model, Mettaton is a complete and total inversion. Your final obstacle before reaching King Asgore and fighting for your own liberation comes in the form of a robot TV host, who is turned into a murder machine. Every interaction with Mettaton is extremely non-serious. There's a quiz show wherein failure means death by lasers, a cooking show where you're the final ingredient to be baked into a cake, and a stage performance where he sings a love song to you, while you navigate an overcomplicated murder maze of his design. His section is more about his creator Alphys, with Mettaton and his goofy traps serving as a vector for jokes, and a way to shed light on Alphys' character. And yet Mettaton is given his own depth and touching moment at the end of his fight. After traveling through Hotland and the Underground's core, Mettaton wakes at the top to reveal that he doesn't really care about actually killing you. All he really wants is to entertain people. He'd even leave the Underground to become a star in the human world to pursue this. And it's very moving, and it's very touching, and then right after this, he turns into a sexy robot boy. And then the best song ever composed for a video game starts playing. It's wild because this fight is like probably the only time you will see this form of Mettaton. The rest of it, he's just a little robot rectangle. But this new form and personality are a total tone shift from how he was before, and yet it's still consistent with the comedic and lighthearted nature of it all. When the fight ends, resulting in the destruction of his arms and legs and a massive drain on his battery, he prepares to draw curtains on his show and his aspirations, only to get calls from beloved viewers telling him how much his show means to them. He powers down, accepting their grace, and emotionally vows that his show will go on. And I know that I've driven this point pretty hard up to this point, but it's still very insane that this game can take a goofy-ass character like this and give them a fitting conclusion that actually makes you feel something. And it's really interesting, too, because upon going back and watching some people play Deltarune Chapter 2 in preparation for the Deltarune launch that just happened, it's really interesting seeing that Chapter 2 has a lot of themes and a lot of even mechanical motifs that you see in Mettaton's section here. Spamton's secret boss fight straight up robs the exact mechanical gimmick that Mettaton's has. And all the themes of, like, media popularity and success and glamour are all things that, and like entertainment, are all things that appear throughout Chapter 2. And a lot of these things come up explicitly with regards to Queen and Spamton. Is Fox, you know, taking inspiration from his previous work, his previous ideas, and expanding them out a little bit more? Or did he have these characters in mind way back in the day and made Mettaton as, like, maybe a little trial run? Maybe Mettaton almost would have made it to Deltarune, but figure that he fits better into this game. Mettaton's fight is really well designed, even outside of the little shooty heart gimmick that Spamton steals. Progress is made in the fight by improving the ratings of his show, which includes performing well during his attacks, answering his essay question correctly, and only eating tasteful branded healing items in battle, instead of junk food, which you literally buy from a cat and alligator living in a dumpster. That will make his ratings go down. In fact, if you've been playing non-violently so far, this is probably like the second instance in the entire game in which you'll actually attack an opponent in any way whatsoever, which should probably breach the subject. I haven't really been talking about the combat for most of this video up to this point. Undertale has a combat system that's definitely unique from a lot of stuff that I've played, but it's frankly kind of basic for what it is. You either fight or act, prompting the enemy to attack on their turn, which puts your heart sprite into a little bullet hell box for a little bit, and their bullets are usually themed to whatever monster happens to be attacking you. Like, there's a carrot that throws little vegetables at you, a tsundere plane whose planes you have to graze to trigger a spare, Papyrus throws out bones, Undyne throws out spears, Mettaton throws out little robots and bombs. The bosses are generally pretty intense, requiring some real focus and reflex to read their attack patterns. And these fights have extra tension on pacifist attempts too, because When you're trying to defeat them passively, you don't have like a health bar, you know, showing the incremental progress that you're making. So when the attacks become even faster and even trickier, you're sweating out your hands to dodge as perfectly as possible because you don't know how much longer you have. For most enemies in the overworld though, this system exists in the same way that Mettaton does, as a vector for jokes and short bits of character building. That's how it is on the version of Undertale that I played. Because there's actually two Undertales. There's the one that I've been describing, which is full of lighthearted character moments, lots of jokes, a delightfully charming and emotionally sincere atmosphere. And then there's the one that I've been choosing to ignore up to this point. Its existence demands recognition, or else the game really isn't complete. In all three of the main zones, Snowden Forest, the Waterfall Caves, and Hotland/the Core, there are one or two merchant characters with unique sprite work who are exempt from the usual monster encounter templates. The one most people remember is Burger Pants, this guy who works at the burger stand at the Mettaton-themed hotel, a character that Toby Fox hand-drew himself before designing all of his other all the other crazy sprites that this character has. Most character art came from one Timmy Chang, who is even represented in the game as a hidden merchant in the waterfall zone, and by this little cat here. The other merchant, an old turtle named Gerson, has some added dialogue that contributes to the waterfall zone's overall world-building purpose. He tells of the symbol of the monster kingdom, incidentally called the Deltarune. It's made of two halves. The lower half is three triangles that represent the monsters down below. The upper half is an angel descending from above. The angel is said, within the rune's prophecy, to be the one that will one day empty the undergrounds. Some believe this means the angel will free the monster to the surface. Others, however, believe them to be an angel of death, who will free the monsters from this mortal realm. See, much of what I described thus far are gameplay events which take place on either neutral or pacifist playthroughs. If you go through the ruins as I did, killing some enemies but tactically sparing some others, running from encounters that seem inconvenient, your game experience will be pretty similar to what I've described thus far. But let's say you want that EXP meter to go up. Like really go up. Let's say you do the typical RPG loop of grinding for rewards, wandering around aimlessly, triggering as many encounters as possible. So you do this, and you kill the little critters, you make those numbers go up, but then at about 20 encounters in the ruins specifically, the monsters stop. Random encounters will still trigger, yeah, but in their place is a blank screen with text that simply reads, "But nobody came." Once this trigger is accomplished, Nabstablook won't appear. Toriel will go down in a single attack. Your interactions with certain objects will change. Their text reading in a sinister red, seemingly in a voice different from your player characters. When you look at the iconic mirror in Toriel or Asgore's homes, the text does not read, "It's you," or "Despite everything, it's still you." Instead it reads, "It's me," your character name. This form of Undertale is one of the more controversial parts of the game, the route that has caused a lot of discourse surrounding the game and how effective its commentary is on these RPGs, and what it means to engage with them so solipsistically, viewing the inhabitants as just meat for the grinder with no interior lives whatsoever. The genocide route, which has been popularly renamed the No Mercy route, given the politically charged connotations of that name, is achieved through exactly that sort of engagement. It's a playstyle diametrically opposed to what you do in the neutral or pacifist playstyles. I will say that even before playing Undertale fully, in the years while I was still largely blind on the game as a whole, I was casually aware that these two routes existed. At the time, I just thought that they resulted in different endings, you know? It's like the divergent endings in BioShock from sparing or harvesting little sisters or some shit. I was wrong. The game changes pretty much completely if you choose to engage it with the No Mercy playstyle. Typically, populated towns and buildings will be devoid of normally friendly creatures, all of whom are now fleeing your violent rampage and horror. Most of the puzzles and hazards are solved already, presumably by Flowey, who's now fully on your side and co-signs your quest. Overworld music tracks will play at distorted half speeds. Undyne is now not only fully justified in her quest to kill you, but both her and Mettaton's boss forms are upgraded and intensified, as they now serve the last line of defense between you and the Underground's people. Alphys is entirely absent from this route, as she's focused on evacuating everybody. When utilizing save points, the usual text that shows that you're filled with determination is replaced with a counter of how many monsters are left to kill in the zone. It telling you how many left is kinda horrifying? Yeah, like, even these, like, little details, like, notice over there how that little smile that's popping up there, normally that's just like an exclamation point. Encounter! In the No Mercy route, it's a little smile, like your character saying, oh, something new to kill. Like, that's kind of fucking scary. That's kind of weird. That's a 5-year-old. One of the most sinister warnings that's baked into this route comes at the end of the forest section, just before Snowden Town and the Papyrus fight, right after Papyrus withdraws his Gauntlet of Death trap, because he feels like your character wouldn't be impressed by it. Normally, the Super Sans thanks you for putting up with Papyrus, putting him in a good mood, and being a good sport about it all. Instead, on this No Mercy route, his eyes darken, warning you that if you continue on this path, you're gonna have a bad time. Sans isn't seen much again, if at all, during this route, much like the other NPCs. Many people will say that, like, I've honestly heard some people say that Undertale doesn't have a lot of replay value because there's, like, only one correct way to play that, which would be the true pacifist route. And they say this because the No Mercy route is so disturbing, and it doesn't really reward the player proportionately for completing it, and it will permanently alter future playthroughs to remind you of all the violence that you did. I would dispute that somewhat. The No Mercy route does, in fact, reward the player. You just get greater knowledge about the world, you get more backstory, you get to learn the specific roles of Flowey and the player character in different ways that you would on the pacifist route. For my money, though, the sharpest divide between these two playstyles is the absence of Sans. Sans is the most important character in Undertale. More than Flowey, more than the first human. Because Sans is the anchor upon which Undertale builds its tone across the divergent routes. He is a fan favorite also, sometimes in a really off-putting way, but he was pretty much guaranteed that spot the moment his voice first plays and his Comic Sans text first appeared. I mean, I can't stop doing it, it's like a vocal tip for me. He's a purveyor of all kinds of jokes and gags across the neutral run, appearing several times at market stalls where he seemingly has no business being. He is always pranking you. He can basically teleport, and your conversations with Sans reveal him to be just as emotionally aware and mature as Papyrus and Undyne. He's a recurring, charming, and seemingly innocuous character for much of the game, which is great, because he's the first monster you meet after leaving Toriel's place, and his familiarity becomes a kind of comfort that, no matter how hard things get down here, there's always somebody that's got your back. He even takes you out to a couple of meals. First at Grillby's, a dive bar in Snowden Town, and again at Mettaton's hotel restaurant. And here's where things get really interesting. At the hotel, Sans talks about finding the mysterious door to the ruins, and hearing Toriel's voice on the other side. The two of them, strangers at first, bonded over bad knock-knock jokes. After meeting you, Toriel apparently made Sans promise not to let any harm come to you if you ever happen to make it through the door. Sans agreed. He's clever not to explain this outright to you, but he does tell you that if he never made his promise, you'd be dead where you stand. This conversation would only take place during a neutral or pacifist run. On No Mercy, the hotel would be completely absent of non-merchant NPCs. Your only interactions between here and Asgore are necessarily going to be violent. Asgore's family home sits between you and him. After the home is a long grand hallway, fit for a king. Sans is here. Now, one of the ways that Undertale might come across as hokey nowadays is in the way that so many of its design elements and mechanics are recognizable across many seemingly unrelated titles. Now, in this moment, Sans will judge and evaluate your choices, determining whether or not he will allow you to pass through, tallying up your total kills. I've seen this shit happen so many times in games, particularly Metal Gear Solid 3 with the fight with the Sorrow, the guy who summons the ghosts of enemies who you've killed thus far, and they all try to kill you in this little, like, purgatorial river. That was 10 years before Undertale. Now, Undertale is unique from Metal Gear Solid because it is much better about using the mechanical and visual languages of its genre to its advantage in these moments. Killing monsters gives you EXP, which raises your LV. Pretty simple stuff, right? But it's not. EXP, Sans explains, stands for execution points, not experience points. And LV stands for level of violence, not just level. I mean, why would it? Since when was it anything different? This is a part of Undertale that I've seen some people get really mad at, and I've kind of been baffled by that for the last couple of years. People feel called out in this moment, saying that the game has, like, suddenly damned them for playing it a certain way. And I'd say feeling called out by this moment kind of speaks to an inability to invest in the narrative of whatever you're playing and take it seriously. It shows that one sees the player character as nothing more than an avatar for their own self upon which they can project, not as their own individual. And to be fair, this kind of projection is very easy to make in this game with Undertale's protagonist. They are, in fact, a silent character, and they have an utterly static facial expression, which, by the expectations set by games like Half-Life, usually just means that you are, in fact, a avatar for the player's will. The narration during the neutral player will always call out you, after all. Not like where it says I and me during the No Mercy route. You picked up the snowball, you spared the enemy. There is genuinely a very thin barrier between the player and the protagonist on this route. A barrier that's really only shattered at the very end. Let's say you feel that Sans is speaking to you, person playing the game right now. Consider what makes RPGs in this format so rewarding in the first place. There is a tangible and satisfying arc of progression and a path to power in all RPGs, one that's even more tangible in JRPGs, where mechanical engagement is usually emphasized over narrative engagement, which is the legacy that this game is kinda modeling itself after. Your options to define your character and the role that they play are usually just customization, choosing between different powers and rewards that accumulate towards the apex of your journey. This is a great feeling in any RPG, but Sans is kinda criticizing you for engaging in this game that way. If your EXP is greater than 0, if you have killed a single monster in this world, he will question your capacity to choose kind outcomes, to demonstrate that you care about the monsters that live here. And as Jordan pointed out, if you killed Papyrus up to this point, Sans' brother, he will give you some shit for it. And the game hints at this outcome really early on, actually. If you're allowed to fight Napstablook and then you choose to kill him, your EXP will actually subtract 1, indicating that the acronym is not what you think it means. It does feel good to make numbers go up. Yes, anyone who plays RPGs like this likes this sensation. And it feels very strange and a little upsetting to come as far as this hallway and to not have that effort rewarded, but instead it's actively punished and judged. And Sans claims that the higher your EXP and level, the further you distance yourself from the reality of what you're doing. And why wouldn't it? Would an inhabitant of this world not think of you in a negative light for the violence that you would normally do nonchalantly in these RPGs? If you exit the ruins having killed every monster there, Sans and Papyrus don't even recognize you as a human. Many pieces of narration shift to first person the farther along the No Mercy route you progress. Who is speaking, then? If you've reached Sans in the No Mercy run, you might suppose that this is your character's voice. If you distance yourself as much as possible from your own acts of violence, the distance between you and your character is in the sharpest possible relief. The narration becomes I because of this solipsistic engagement, because you no longer see your character as a person. So, no, I don't believe Sans is speaking to the player in this moment. And characters do break the fourth wall from time to time, yes, but during the EXP judgment, Sans is speaking to your character the way he always has. Getting through with 0 EXP has Sans praising your compassion, your commitment to kindness, trusting that you'll do the right thing even if it means Asgore has to die. There is a reward in this moment, a narrative one, not a mechanical one. And it depends entirely on giving up the pursuit of the traditional RPG structure. If you adopt Flowey's kill or be killed mentality though, if you engage with this game world solipsistically, and treat every monster as an opportunity to make numbers go up, then that is a narrative choice. That is a role that you have chosen for your character to play. And that is what Sans is evaluating here. Not morally judging you, or judging your character for participating in the game through a means by which it has invited you to do so. And this right here, this is why I believe Sans is the most important character in the game. He is the anchor for how the game conceives of itself, the anchor for how the fans conceive of the game too, and of its impact, and he's the cornerstone for the game's most ambitious narrative goals. His little aw shucks attitude and goofy pranks are a mask for some real intense and frightening stuff, which is clearly a stand-in for how Undertale disguises its very horrifying elements with jokes and goofs. He singularly represents the contrasting tones of the various playthroughs through the judgment upon which the game pivots. And if you've done the No Mercy route, his fight is the most memorable and iconic of all the fights in Undertale. And like, holy fuck is it hard! To make this video possible, I went and played the game this way just to read the Sans fight, so I could play it for this video. I really should have just watched somebody else do this, but because I have a modicum of professional integrity, I threw my hat in the ring on this one. I mean, after everything I'd played in the Pacifist route, and No Mercy routes, and Deltarune Chapters 1 and 2, it couldn't have been that hard, right? I think I fought Sans something like 50 times. The total time investment was like 2 hours, maybe more, hard to tell. It took me a couple sittings to actually do it. I was getting mad. I cannot emphasize enough how difficult this fucker is compared to everybody else that you fight in this game. Time spent on the fight and listening to his dialogue means that the majority of my time in the No Mercy route was spent solely on fighting Sans. Hell, I think in terms of total aggregate time, Sans is the character I've interacted with the most across all my playthroughs of Undertale, simply because this fight took me so fucking long to beat. I'm super glad that I didn't stream this or anything, because the extra eyes and voices on me for this would have distracted the hell out of me. His opening attack, which is also like maybe his strongest move, maybe outside of his final attack, maybe it's hard to say. It killed me the first 3 times I attempted the fight, and then a few more later on when the fatigue started setting in. Most of his moves are faster and trickier versions of Papyrus's moves, where he restricts your heart's movement to side-scrolling and jumping, making you leap over scrolling bones, which moves way faster and way less predictably than Papyrus's do. Halfway through the fight, his bones start moving across the player's action menu, which will do you damage if you're too slow, and the bones hit your little soul indicator. I died twice to those fucking things. Remember earlier when I said that Sans could basically teleport, and it was basically a gag where he knows a shortcut to restaurants? He does it in the fight, also. Which translates to interrupting his moves and hot-sawing between them in the middle of his attack pattern. And by this point, you are strong enough to kill any enemy in a single hit. But Sans will dodge every single one of your attacks until the moment you tire him out. And even when you do beat him, the fight would have taken something like 15 whole fucking minutes. And finally killing Sans, fucking sucks. It's one of the more impactful of all the character deaths. And by this point, the player understands fully how cleverly this game uses its gameplay to tell its narrative, but also like presentational elements that aren't active gameplay, but are unique to the dialect of the medium. From the moment you would have first run from a battle, you see stuff like this, with the way your heart sprite will straight up sprout legs and walk off the screen. You've played this game long enough to be operately conditioned to respond to its specific stimuli and soundscape, especially to sound effects like for monster attacks and monster deaths. The way that this fight ends, with Sans attacks getting more and more desperate, more and more brutally difficult to dodge, so intense that his sprite is visibly sweating and panting, is perfectly in keeping with what this game has primed you for up to this point. And it stays that clever throughout too, with his special attack being not a big laser or some ultimate one-hit kill bone, but his ability to stall and annoy you. He starts rambling on, consciously using his turn to just keep talking at you, drawing it out so long that he starts drifting off, running out of breath. This process takes an entire 5 minutes of waiting before the player can even do anything. During this last little monologue, he tells you that his last hope of beating you is getting you to give up the fight. Give up, he says, in the same way that he has. His fight dialogue is particularly haunting even before this, actually, hinting at some pretty far-reaching world-building implications that you wouldn't have seen up to this point. He speaks of divergences in space-time, how he's seen the result of the current timeline, a result which has horrified him into nihilistic apathy. The world won't just vanish, it'll reset to its same previous configuration so it can be destroyed all over again. The anomaly that caused this outcome has been a mystery to him, but at this point in the fight, it's disturbingly clear to both of you that the anomaly is you, or some force connected to you in some way. The purpose for Sans' difficulty in the narrative is, besides punishing the player for repeatedly choosing the wrong thing, is to delay the bottomless appetite for destruction that your character now possesses, which will one day consume the entire world. But it's not enough in the end. He grows tired after this monologue, and after about 3 minutes of waiting, his eyes will shut. The player, still just a soul in the bullet hell box, can now push that box by inches and inches closer to the fight icon, which will land the killing blow. The real gut punch here is that Sans doesn't die right away. He has just enough time to say some final words, limp his way off camera, think about his brother, and only when he's out of view do you hear the death noise. So, the only blood left not staining your hands, then, are the final two bosses of the neutral route. The remaining path leads into Asgore, king of all the monsters and ruler of the underground. He, like so many others, is killed in one hit. Flowey's a bit more stubborn, though, and will have time enough to beg for his life as you cut him down. This isn't the end of the encounter, though. Not yet. From out of the black void behind the bodies of everybody you've killed thus far to get here, emerges a new character. It looks like you, actually, but wearing a sinister smile that resembles the face that pops up with every new monster encounter on this route. They are the one whose been distorting the narration across this violent playthrough. They are the human child who has been raised by Asgore and Toriel, whom the King's son tried to save from death long ago, long before Asgore declared war on humanity. They were your silent companion this entire journey, from the moment you named your character. They will be named whatever you choose for them, but Kara is their true name. Your character is not Kara, but through your character's power, through their soul, and their capacity for violence, Kara has returned from beyond the grave. The very same grave that Asgore keeps in his basement, in fact, alongside those coffins containing the other 6 human souls. Kara's dialogue seems to explicitly break the fourth wall, emphasized by their lack of an actual text box, the way they address you and or your character as a collaborator in this route slaughter. Kara is the true anomaly of which Sans spoke, wielding the capacity to reduce the whole game world to an empty void, back from the dead to enact vengeance on both monsters and humans alike. Now, you know how in early Pokemon games and most JRPGs in general, a character will ask you if you want to embark on the main quest or not, and if you answer with a no, it just resets the question until you give up and answer in the affirmative? That memified illusion of choice device is so derided because it shatters the illusion of player choice within the narrative, that your role within the RPG is one from which you cannot deviate. Undertale has a few moments like this, usually played for comedy, but Kara makes you a series of offers here that follow a similar line of thinking. By this point, you have made your choice. You have played your role as a dead-eyed mass murderer so effectively that Kara now has the power to destroy the world entire, reset it, and inhabit your body. First, the offer to erase the world. The outcome is the same regardless of your response, but rejecting his offer causes Kara's face to contort into a monstrous shape, questioning if you were ever the one in control of things to begin with. Kara literally attacks your screen. If you're playing on PC in windowed mode, the borders of your window will shake and bounce around, violently spasming as maxed out damage numbers flood the screen, causing the game to shut off completely. Booting the game up again will reveal a black screen with the distant sounds of wind howling, an empty and lifeless place with not a soul in sight. After 10 minutes of looking on your works and despairing, Kara offers to restore this blasted world, if you give them your soul. Accepting this offer is the only way to play the game again in this configuration. It will appear as though everything exactly the same way it was when you installed it. You get to pick a new character name, Flowey doesn't remember your previous playthroughs, everything is just as you left it. Until you beat the game. Neutral endings are unaltered, but playing all the way to True Pacifist reveals something hauntingly different. Whatever final cutscene plays for you, it will change to show that Kara now inhabits your character's body, their sinister red eyes and smile appearing over your normally blank expression in the final slides. Even your attempts to do good in this game are forever tainted by Kara's presence, haunted by the consequences of what you did to bring them back, even with the memory of that route erased. Even more damning is the outcome if you choose yet another No Mercy playthrough. If you can manage to beat Sans a second time reaching Kara again, they will basically ask you directly, what could possibly be so wrong with you? They can't even fathom what could possibly possess you to relive the experience to reach this point. Even I have to admit, some fourth wall breaking makes a little sense here. After going through this route even once, I don't think I'd ever want to see this shit again. I can't imagine who would want to do that. And I am glad, as fucked up as that was, as horrible as that was, I am happy that I went and played that again. I am happy that I went and saw that shit, because as upsetting and disturbing as the No Mercy ending is, as well as those subsequent soulless endings, they genuinely add so much to the cumulative narrative and experience that's going on in this game. From a metatextual level, the stain left on the game's permanent files by the No Mercy route is a fascinating concept. It gets a player wondering about the full extent of what, like, saving and resetting the game even means, like, metaphysically within this world. It acknowledges stuff like the game's, like, info files that has immutable parts of the fabric of this digital world, which is literally true. And in the game, they have an appropriate weight as such. From a tonal perspective, the divergence between the alternating playthroughs shows how dynamic Fox is as a writer and director, how many different moods he can conjure, how many themes that all complement each other. Like, even if you, like, don't engage with the No Mercy playthrough, the weight of refusing that path adds some significance to pursuing the pacifist route, always knowing that at any time, you could choose differently. Like, most of all, though, if you only play neutral or pacifist, Kara's basically locked away, and their role in the narrative can, like, barely be perceived. When the mirror in Asgore's home reads, "Despite everything, it's still you," it isn't just a testament to how your journey has shaped you, but to how your character resisted the violent influence of Kara and the devastation that they represent. You have stayed true to your kindness and compassion, preventing Kara from usurping your soul, your role in the story, your very presence in the world. You wouldn't understand that in an alternate timeline, Kara would be a part of you forever, and even this isn't technically permanent. The post-No Mercy route changes can be averted if you delete certain game info files, but the narrative weight of averting that outcome gives it meaning in the first place. When I did my first full playthrough where I committed to pacifist playstyle from the get, I barely had any idea what I had saved myself from. Now, that isn't to say that Kara isn't, like, fully absent from the main rounds. Their existence and their story is still hinted at multiple times, but none so explicitly as in Asgore's home, where several non-violent monsters appear to tell the history of Asriel, son of the king, and his human adopted sibling, the first to ever fall into the underground to begin with. Their story goes that one day, the human, Kara, became terminally sick. After they died, Asriel absorbed their soul, promising to use it to pass the barrier and lay them to rest in their hometown, with a view of the town's distinctive golden flowers. The first humans who saw Asriel believed the child to be responsible for Kara's death, attacking and fatally wounding him. Now, this story is actually incomplete on two parts. One half concerns Asriel, who I'll get to him in a minute. The half that concerns Kara, though, takes you to some of the darkest and most horrific sections of the entire game, and from the unlikeliest of all possible sources. I've gone pretty much this entire time without talking about Alphys. Like I said earlier, Mettaton is the boss of the Hotland Zone, but Alphys is the real star of the show there. You only get to interact with her directly during the neutral or pacifist runs, during all of which she had been watching your adventures and became a fan of sorts. She's very excited to meet you, so excited that she will do everything in her power to stop Mettaton from murdering you on camera. She will disable traps and fit your cell phone with convenient upgrades that are perfectly tuned for whatever ridiculous situation in which Mettaton traps you. She's awfully nervous and very flighty, but she's passionate about her interests, which seem to be anime, video games, and hanging out with you. It's a very fun and very charming setup for sure, made even more charming by her obvious crush on Undyne, but where is it going exactly? What's the punchline here? The way Mettaton puts it, his entire killer robot shtick was a setup too. Alphys has fabricated that entire thing as a ploy to get you to stay with her, to keep you from killing Asgore. She's a bit of a habitual liar, it seems. When the opportunity for a date with Undyne finally presents itself, she is overly flighty about the truth of the situation and about how she feels. The truth is that she has been depressed for a very long time, burdened by poor self-esteem and deep insecurities. It's a sad side of Alphys to see for sure, but it's kind of the same thing that we kind of seen with Papyrus, right? Where like he's also like really lonely under all the jokes and everything. If you unlock the pacifist route, you get to see that there's actually another conclusion beyond that. That's the only way you get to the hilarious date scene, which includes Undyne having a crisis when she's told that anime isn't real. After that scene, Papyrus super unsubtly directs you to Alphys' lab, where a previously locked door has opened to reveal a hidden basement sublab. This is the true lab. Alphys is Asgore's royal scientist after all, but only in venturing down this basement would you ever actually learn what it was that Alphys really did. The lab features an atmosphere and aesthetic unlike anywhere else in the entire game. A haunted, dilapidated place that gives real the Resident Evil final area energy. As it should. Now, when Asgore lost both of his children, he declared war on humanity. His decree was that every human that fell into the underground must be killed, their souls locked away until Asgore can collect enough to destroy the barrier and exterminate humanity for good. In a neutral playthrough, this is framed as a tragic and sad misunderstanding that inevitably results in your battle with the king. Your soul is the object of his ambitions, and his soul represents your own freedom. Even if you, like me, committed to pacifism the entire neutral playthrough, Asgore is impossible to spare until the last devastating blow. Ironically, he's a pretty numerically easy boss to defeat, since his difficulty must be tuned to an EXP0 character, so even though I had to learn the attack quicktime events on the fly for this fight, I still got him on like my first try. That kind of frames this big badass boss monster as a little pathetic and sad, but it's not the only way the game does it. When you first leave Toriel's home, she warns you about your upcoming fight with Asgore, as this insurmountable final obstacle to leaving the underground for good. However, on multiple occasions, numerous characters talk about what a cushy pushover Asgore really is. The king that they know is the diagonal opposite to the king that you've heard about, and that's intentional. Upon learning that Asriel could cross the barrier after absorbing a human soul, and that one could simply harvest 6 more souls on the surface, then return to destroy the barrier, then this begs the question, why is Asgore hiding in his castle? Dialogue with Toriel, who happens to be Asgore's ex-wife, reveals that Asgore is just too afraid to take another human life, that he's been hiding down here hoping that no one would ever fall into the underground again, that he would never have to do that hard choice, the choice that characters like Undyne would make in an instant. Your life for all their freedom. Instead, because of Asgore's cowardice, the entire underground languishes and loses hope. The ruins in which you find Toriel are actually the first city the monsters ever created, a city called Holm. Asgore's city, New Holm, is a perfect replica in almost every way, down to the layout of his new house. Except it's hollow, where the ruins are this vibrant color of purples and pinks and blacks. New Holm is totally monochromatic. It's going gray, like with age, slowly losing color, personality, and vitality. Where your character's tendency towards pacifism is framed as a moral net positive, a heroically self-sacrificial quality that shows you value the lives of others over your own freedom, Asgore's pacifism cannot be reconciled with his responsibility to the monsters under his reign. Asgore is honestly a really interesting character when you get down to it. He does appear in Deltarune, and that game treats him as mostly a font for jokes about divorced dads, which are honestly very funny. Divorced dad jokes are always funny. That's just true. But in this debut game, he is a false icon, a false hero, a brave and valiant king who can't possibly live up to the expectations placed upon him. You know, like, in Dark Souls, where you have, like, the final boss who's, like, this powerful god king who drags his kingdom into decline by refusing to make necessary sacrifices. That's Asgore. It's just Asgore. He is, at his core, a good man. He wants to be a good man, at least. Now, Undertale may have a pretty simple and binary concept of morality, but the game is smart and sharp enough with its writing to declare that inaction, in the face of total oblivion, is its own act of cruelty. The worst part about that is that he doesn't even bear the weight of his own, his own cruelty, his own greatest act of cruelty. Alphys does. Hidden in Alphys' true lab are logs revealing experimentation on the souls that Asgore has collected so far. There's hospital beds in the rooms between hallways. The music and sound design are eerie and foreboding, especially during combat encounters with these horrifying amalgamations of monsters that you've encountered many times over at this point. These are the remnants of Alphys' experiments. Asgore tasked her with researching human souls, discovering a way to increase the power of monster souls. Part of her data includes videotapes appropriated from the King's home, which feature, of course, Kara and Asriel. This is, outside of the very ending, the most explicit appearance of Kara in any capacity on the true pacifist route. The only way to get into this lab. The tapes depict darkness, but the found audio hints at Kara's sinister nature. They discover the prophecy of the Deltarune. They observed the golden flower's poisonous properties if you ingested them. They hatched a plan. Alphys' finding on human souls, on how they persist even after death, is consistent with what we know about Kara's fate, how they caused their own terminal illness, leading to their own demise, how they convinced Asriel to do exactly the plan of which Toriel spoke, exactly what she says Asgore should have done, pass through the barrier and return with the 7 souls. Instead, Asriel's death meant that Kara's soul, bound to Asriel's ephemeral monster soul, disappeared. So Kara returned with no soul, no empathy, no kindness, just an unrestrained hatred for all living things. Alphys doesn't know this just yet, But soon upon discovering the source of the human soul's power, then hypothesizing what it would mean for a soulless being to have this power, she devises an experiment. Alphys believes that human souls have a special power that allows them to endure anything. But we know this is not the full truth. When the player character witnesses certain things in the world, it fills them with determination, which allows them to save the game. What Alphys reveals is that this little piece of flavor text is a tangible, diegetic power within the game world. Your character, like all humans, possesses the power to bend events to your own will to such an extent that the world can be reset, that certain events can be undone, and that your soul cannot be destroyed, simply returning to the last point at which it saved. This is the power of determination. Determination doesn't just refer to a power born of being determined. It is not just the power to be determined. It is the power to determine. To plant your feet and bend reality to your whims through sheer force of will. This is why Undyne can come back from the dead, because she has some of this. And Alphys has been harvesting this power from the 6 human souls and injecting it into volunteer monsters, which has clearly not been going very well. All of this background, all of this deep lore, is delivered through a character who writes fanfiction about you and spends her free time posting on the undernet about a game called Mew Mew Kissy Cutie. Alphys has to be the most unassuming character in the entire story. Easily one of the cutest and most endearing of the main cast. By the time she's introduced, the game has successfully conditioned you to expect some kind of twist in her character, and the neutral plot delivers on this with the admission about her depression, but this shit right here is on a whole other level. No character has this many skeletons in their closet. I mean, in a metaphorical sense. But hers carry a lot more world building than any other character, even Undyne, even Flowey. This is the only way you'll learn the true meaning of determination. A fragment of lore that's relevant to the No Mercy route, but is still left, like, entirely unexplained from that playthrough. The amalgams are just as disturbing as the implications about how they were created in the first place. And this entire section transforms the visual language borrowed from Earthbound, and even lifts some lines of dialogue directly to create the strongest horror atmosphere you'll ever see in the game. All you have to do is walk through these hallways and just look. And all your questions about what Alphys is so guilty about, what is the source of her self-hatred, you see it so plainly. Sans might be the most important character to the game, but Alphys is easily my favorite. She's still harboring one more secret that's more horrible than all of them. So Kara became terminally ill after ingesting too many buttercups. These golden flowers appear repeatedly in the underground, most prominently in the King and Queen's homes and the surrounding environs. They used to be rare, only blooming in the ruins where their seeds would fall from the surface. Now, Asgore cultivates them in a garden growing over Asriel's grave. During Alphys' experiments, she hypothesized that a soulless being, something that's neither human or monster, might be able to sustain the dose of determination that she's working with. Her test subject was the first golden flower to bloom in Asgore's castle, a golden flower sprouting from where Asriel was buried. Alphys imbues a soulless object with the will to live, a character who you know well by now. Flowey barely appears outside his 2 appearances in his tutorial zone, but his presence in the narrative is repeatedly foreshadowed. Sans claims that when Papyrus walks among the blue echo flowers, there is another flower that will whisper things to him directly. Your character falls into a bed of golden flowers in the waterfall caves while running from Undyne. It can be said that Kara haunts the No Mercy route as that route's antagonist, and there's no question that Flowey fulfills the same role for the neutral route. Now, on the neutral route, though, that Flowey is haunting, he never really explains himself enough for a player to make any specific connections. On a No Mercy playthrough, though, he recognizes you as a kindred spirit, an old friend, even. He even addresses your character directly by the name that you chose at the beginning. no characters really do that. It's implied that Flowey has been solving the game's many puzzles for you on this route, but by the time you're at Sans' doorstep, he's hesitant about the little partnership that you guys have made. Flowey substitutes the monsters in Asgore's home, who show up to tell the story of Asriel, where he speaks instead about how ever since he gained consciousness, he's had no capacity for empathy or compassion. Despite having no soul, he's been able to use his determination to save and reset the world just as you have. Like you, he is a designated actor within the game world, able to shape it to his will, unless you betray him at the end of the playthrough, in which case Kara wins that particular tug of war. Were Flowey's vision to come out on top, though, it'd be a little less bleak for sure, but definitely horrifying. I consider whether or not I actually wanted to show Flowey's final boss form for this section, but I'm gonna be honest, my tummy kind of hurts whenever I look at it, so I'm afraid this part's gonna be a little lacking in accurate visuals. So I hope you can accept that I'm threading the needle with what I feel comfortable and safe looking at. So, when you defeat Asgore on a neutral playthrough, you have the option to finish him off or spare him. If you spare him like I did, his heart warms up at the thought of starting a new family with you around. Up until Flowey shows up and finishes the job first. Flowey will then usurp the 6 human souls that Asgore's been saving, a sequence that has Flowey's face warping very similarly to Kara's when they crash the game. And then Flowey does the same thing. Flowey fucking crashes your game, and then rebooting it after this shocking moment reveals some immediate changes. The intro slides are a bit more sinister, the title on your game window has changed, and the save file now lists Flowey as the title holder, with all of his stats maxed out. And his design in the ensuing fight is just so upsetting to me. If you're watching this at home and you don't know what this looks like, and you're not prepared to deal with it, don't Google it like Joy just did. Just don't. This form is called Omega Flowey or Photoshop Flowey, and it encompasses all of the negative space on the window with a random assortment of compressed stock Photoshop assets that look nothing like the 8-bit aesthetic that you're used to. It's animated to this like foul and convulsing rhythm, practically filling the extremely limited battle space with bullets, which is completely overwhelming to the senses, especially with the intentionally dissonant soundscape of music and just foul sound effects. Basically all of the negative space on the screen, which is typically a guaranteed safe space that the game is implicitly agreed not to intrude upon, is suddenly consumed by Flowey's new horrible body. It is exactly like what Spitzy in chat just said, what if 5th graders art class co-wash project hated you? Jordan in chat also says, Flowey's final form in neutral was a masterclass in completely upsetting the framework of the game solely to fuck with you. I have a lot of trouble explaining why this form bothers me so much. I fought some really gross and really grotesque looking monsters across all kinds of FromSoft games and Atlas RPGs, and none of them really disturb me. It's really effective, and the design embodies exactly what kind of horrific power Flowey now possesses. It genuinely feels unsafe. Like, the game isn't supposed to do that. That's exactly fucking it. When I look at Flowey in this form, my brain just registers it as something that the game isn't supposed to do. Like, that's impossible within the bounds of the game's aesthetic. Like, I appreciate it when games take their aesthetic to the farthest they can push it while keeping it intact. Like the way the amalgamates were, you know, they were effectively creepy and within the bounds of what the game's, like, within the game's art style. But this is, like, beyond that. It leaves absolutely nothing to the imagination. And wrapping your head around the look of the thing while it's killing you over and over again and crashing your game mid-fight repeatedly, it makes my fucking head spin whenever I do it. It is a credit to Fox as an artist, though, that he can get me feeling this kind of way. It's a strong emotion to evoke out of somebody. It's just not an emotion I really enjoy that much. So the game is really kind, though, to only make you do this fight once. The true pacifist route doesn't require this battle, and future neutral playthroughs will have Flowey quitting the battle entirely, since he has foreseen these events before, and he knows that he can actually win. Because when you fight him, you must liberate each of the 6 human souls from his grasp, eventually causing them to rebel against him. With their determination returned to them, Flowey's shitty form crumbles, and you have the option to kill him. Or not. Like, why not kill him anyway? Isn't he asking you to do it? Isn't he the single most evil thing you've ever done battle with up to this point? This is the choice presented at the end of the neutral playthrough. And it's the first time I think that I felt the sheer weight of what it means to play as a pacifist in this game. Here you are, face to face with Mr. Kill or Be Killed, finally in the position to do to him what he's been wanting to do to you all game long. To spare this little bastard might seem foolish and naive, but that's what's so powerful about it. How he can't possibly comprehend why you treat him with any amount of kindness. Shouldn't a soulless monster like him receive none? Be worthy of no kindness? And yet doing so, sparing him, will still win the battle all the same. Flowey will run away, confused and scared and powerless, leaving you to pass the barrier and claim your freedom at last. There is a brief epilogue on this neutral ending, where Sans gives you a phone call long after your departure, which serves as a bit of a retrospective on some of your choices and what they might mean for the monsters you left behind. There's actually a huge variety of outcomes based on how many monsters you killed, who you chose to befriend, what major characters are left behind. Toriel assumes the throne if she's left alive, but whether or not you killed Papyrus or Undyne or a certain number of monsters will drastically alter the way her reign plays out. Maybe she peacefully abdicates the throne, but if Undyne is alive, Undyne will lead a violent revolution that puts herself on the throne instead, leading to an even more bloodthirsty prosecution of the previous war effort. Sans has all kinds of shit he can say to you based on minor choices, whether you beat the game with no saves, won the battle with your starting equipment, or you took a piece of a snowman to the surface with you. But his tone will change even more drastically based on the amount of kills you did, especially if you killed Papyrus. If Papyrus is the only major character left alive, he runs the underground by default, but has no idea that the others are dead. If Mettaton is alive but Undyne isn't, then she doesn't seize the throne, leading Mettaton to brainwash everyone in the underground into being his fans forever. Maybe Alphys kills herself. Maybe she's the president. Maybe a dog's the president. Either way, there's a genuine plethora of outcomes available to a player, good or bad, that add weight to seemingly every monster you chose to spare or not. A range far greater than just shining good or vilest evil. The more discussed endings result in a future with basically zero possibilities or infinite possibilities, wherein the monsters take to the surface, assuming they didn't all get killed. These divergent outcomes here in the neutral endings, with the monsters living in an underground that has been shaped by your passing, is really excellent storytelling and kind of underrated storytelling within what else this game is doing. It reminds me of how like classic CRPGs like Fallout or like stuff from the BioWare Classic era will show little epilogue slides that imply the results of your actions and how they ripple across time, showing that your actions live on in an imagined future that does not exist within the space prescribed by the art itself. The possibility of Toriel being roommates with Sans and Papyrus while the underground descends into anarchy is perfect. It's great for stoking the player's imagination as to, you know, how that's going to turn out exactly. It's one of my favorite staples of RPG design, honestly. In this moment, the game treats its world as something that will continue to exist without your direct inputs, but, like I said, has been permanently shaped by your passing. When I played this, the first time anyway, my ending on my neutral playthrough is what's called the flawed pacifist ending. On your first run, even if you commit to non-violence for every single encounter, it's impossible to keep Asgore alive, because even if you don't kill him, File will just do it anyway. If nobody was killed at all besides Asgore, a pretty happy ending plays out. Toriel rules the underground peacefully, Papyrus gets to be captain of the Royal Guard, which he doesn't realize is just an honorary position. Alphys continues her research, presumably more ethically now that it's under closer supervision. Everyone misses you, hoping that someday they'll all get to see you again. Everybody comes out with a smile. All except Flowey, of course. Sparing Flowey on a flawed pacifist ending will actually give you a direct shortcut to the true pacifist ending. Flowey's meta-knowledge directs you straight to Alphys for the Undyne date, then to her lab. Flowey has been watching you, like a hawk, all game long, of course, so naturally he figures that if he can get enough monsters in one place and steal the human souls, he can achieve a new form. His real form. The form he lost long ago, when the body that fertilized his growth as an inanimate golden flower was interred into the earth. The main cast of Undertale are all such delightful characters, and they all do such a spectacular job at making the world come alive, but not many of them, besides Sans, maybe, serve much symbolic purpose outside of their narrative purpose. They don't carry the meta-commentary, or do much fourth wall breaking for the most part. Characters with determination, however, are a little different. Kara explicitly represents the feeling of satisfaction when any stat goes up, and how the pursuit of that feeling often comes at the expense of your narrative immersion, your willingness to project kindness upon inhabitants of the fiction. That's not even speculation, Kara outright says that, basically. Flowey, however, embodies that exact failure to suspend disbelief, but his motivation explicitly, which he only states once he discovers his past and how to achieve his true form, all he wants is to continue playing this game with you. Forever. There's a scene where, twice, everyone you've spared thus far all crowd the screen at once to celebrate the happy ending. First it's the main cast, and then it's an assortment of minor bosses as a little second wave. The scene in question has Toriel, Sans, and such all showing up before Asgore can even be fought, just circumventing that fight entirely, which gives Flowey the chance to steal literally every monster soul in the underground, except for Nap's Boost for some reason. The ensuing boss fight's a pretty long one, filled with the flashing rainbow background, a music track literally called Hopes and Dreams, where you play as a soul with maxed out determination. In terms of tone, I find it very similar to the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, a game that I enjoy, but whose over-earnestness is kind of a mismatch compared to what Undertale does. Undertale is so, elevated above retro JRPGs like Kingdom Hearts because of its ability to subvert and twist on these tropes and cliches and not copy them with total sincerity. But that's where your actual opponent here comes into play. Just as Kara resurrected through the violent potential of your determination, Flowey conjures his true form with a petty tantrum that all he wants is to play his games with his best friend. That doesn't sound like something Flowey would do. That sounds like Asriel, doesn't it? Flowey did grow out of Asriel's burial dirt, if you recall. Flowey will even explicitly mistake you for Kara if you play the No Mercy route, noticeably pleased to see his old best friend again. When Asriel sheds the form of Flowey, he puts up a hell of a fight for sure, growing in intensity the further along you go. Your soul is invincible during this fight, as your determination is now so powerful that you are continuously saving the game. It's like you two are playing pass with the destiny of every living monster. And that is precisely the point. With Asriel's true self returned, exactly as he was in life, he's basically just a child again. My good friend April pointed out that all of his moves have real shonen anime sounding names, and his final form is literally called a god of hyperdeath. A name that could have only been conjured by 8-year-olds playing Power Rangers on the playground. If Asriel had his way, this moment would go on forever. He believes he's finally been reunited with the one person who truly understands him. But violence is the only way he can express himself anymore, since he's been trapped as Flowey this whole time. The fight literally ends with him weeping as he beam attacks you, clinging so hard to the hope that things can just go back to normal again. Like his father, Asriel can't do the hard thing. He will refuse to let go at everybody else's expense. And perhaps because his emotions and compassion have returned to him, or maybe it's because you spared him super extra hard, Asriel quits the fight, returns to his true self. Inside that vicious and cutting buttercup was this, just a lonely, weeping child who just lost their best friend. It's exactly the kind of character twist the game has built itself on this whole time, but with the weight of the entire game behind it, and after seeing the extreme dichotomy between Asriel's false and true selves, it really fucking hits. When Asriel, as Flowey, says he wants the game to go on forever and ever, it feels like a little sadistic. When that impulse is recontextualized, though, and it's reframed as coming from Asriel, it reveals the innocent and playful longing at the heart of that attachment. Wanting those days back after he lost that time with his friend is not a bad thing, but he has to grow up, eventually. This world needs to move on eventually. So now that his compassion has returned, now that you've shown him kindness in return, he sees that the best thing to do is to destroy the barrier for good, letting the monsters return to the surface. And since your character only achieved this goal with the power of absolute radical kindness, the only course of action at this point is to just give the kid a hug. Of course, when I say your character, I mean Frisk. Asriel realizes that you are not Kara, no matter how bad he wanted you to be, no matter how much you look like them. Your character was never Kara. They were never what you named them. The character was never a representation of your own self. They were Frisk, and you were you. They, Frisk, were an individual that exists in part from your input or approval. I don't really have the words to express how much I adore this moment, because it's not built around flattering the player for their achievements, for choosing to do the right thing. It's about how Frisk's true purpose down here, their real goals, were to achieve this moment, this exact outcome. Asriel can't figure out what possessed Frisk to climb the mountain where they fell into the underground, knowing that this would happen. But the truth is evident. When Frisk commits acts of violence, it's Kara's influence upon them. When they choose mercy, when they hug Asriel, when they get Asriel to destroy the barrier and let the monsters finally go free, this is Frisk being true to themselves. It wouldn't be any other way if this ending is the only one where their name is revealed. Even after this moment, there is even more dialogue to be had with Asriel after the fight is done. You learn some shit about Kara, about how they never really were a great person, how Asriel will one day turn back into Flowey, but vows to live a better life with what he has left. There's really a lot to learn about this character who shows up for like one scene. In fact, every single character in the Underground has more dialogue in this little epilogue, wherein you're free to walk around the entire game world, free of combat encounters, hearing feedback about your adventure. Deltarune does this exact same thing too, at the end of its chapters, corralling all the NPCs you've met into a little procession of goodbyes before leaving the dark world you just explored. It's a very BioWare kind of touch, which makes sense because BioWare RPGs are similar in how the writing and characters have generated years and years of enthusiasm for the game worlds. It is a little victory lap, it's a lovely little time, and it's my favorite fucking Toby Fox cliche. I love it every goddamn time. It's not just the quality and charm of the characters in Undertale that have gotten people so attached to it all these years, though. The variation in playthroughs, the Easter eggs, the hidden bits of dialogue, the sheer number of secrets behind the walls in Undertale is so extensive that there's still so much to chew on if you're the kind of person who likes to mess around in the game files. Every time the game is reset, the game generates a number between 1 and 100 called a fun value, which is tied to certain random events in the game. Most often, you get a little prank call, or Alphys will try to order a pizza from you. But if your value, which can be manually modified in the game's text files, is between 80 and 89, like mine was, then a clam girl will appear in the waterfall zone, who says she's visiting her neighbor's daughter, a young girl named Susie. Susie, spelled with an IE instead of a Y, is a major character in Deltarune. It's well known at this point that Deltarune was in the making long before Fox ever began work on Undertale in the first place. Many of its concepts and characters for that game were reformed or reworked over the years, and Susie was one of the first characters Fox ever conceptualized for that later game. It's almost guaranteed that Fox would reference his future project in this early game, but the connections seem to go even deeper. In fact, various fun value events and rooms that are only accessible or explained through game file modding reveal an entire secret character. The ferryman, who helps you fast travel between the major regions, has a couple goofy lines he says every so often when he does this. Nothing that really amounts to anything, except for one line in particular. He warns you of the man who speaks in hands, also known as the Mystery Man, also known as W.D. Gaster. Very little is known definitively about this figure, but the closest the game gets to revealing him is through fun value events. 3 different fun values have a specific chance of spawning his followers in the world, and only one fun value has like the slimmest possible chance of revealing the character himself. Gaster's name is only revealed through dialogue with his followers, who profess him to be the brilliant and enigmatic royal scientist who preceded Alphys, possibly the one who invented the device that Alphys used to extract determination. His design is also a little unclear. I've shown one of his sprites, but there's another inaccessible room that has a potential other version of him, and one of those inaccessible rooms happens to be a hidden 17th entry in Alphys' notes from the lab. It's a really weird note, written entirely in the hieroglyphic Windings font. Now, the only other characters who speak in alternative fonts in all of Undertale happen to be Sans and Papyrus, who speak in Comic Sans and Papyrus, respectively. Could this suggest some connection between Gaster and the skeletons? Sans' deadly lasers do come from skulls called Gaster Blasters, after all. Sans' whole reveal about his intense power and the whole EXP thing are the only hidden surprise behind that character also. Resetting the game and speaking to Sans 20 times in the Judgment Hallway prompts him to give you a key to his room, which in turn will lead to his hidden workshop. It's pretty bare, just a desk, some drawers, and blueprints too indecipherable to make any sense of. In the drawers, however, is a poorly drawn picture of 3 characters that Frisk has never seen, tucked in a photo album full of unrecognizable people. These little trails, along with some follow-up Easter eggs in Deltarune, have spawned a wild assortment of fan theories, suggesting that Gaster somehow binds the parent and child games together by lore. Could those 3 characters be the main trio from Deltarune? Does this suggest something about the chronology of the 2 games, if they do share a continuity? Are Sans and Alphys both in on whatever broader secret that Gaster represents? I don't really know. That's not really what I'm here to speculate about. There's a lot to keep fan theorists fed for a long time for sure, and with more chapter releases for Deltarune, I'm sure that this rabbit hole will get even deeper. But when evaluating the bridge across the divide between Undertale and Deltarune, guessing as to their continuity is, I think, missing the point. The 2 games are connected on several significant levels, and one doesn't really need to dig so deep to see that. All you have to do is to understand what Undertale means as a cultural object. And that is more easily done than said. When I think about what Undertale means to game history as a whole, or that moment in the fall of 2015 when it exploded like a pop culture supernova, I think about this piece that Griffin McElroy brother wrote for Polygon at the time. I actually wouldn't have known about this if Jordan, who's been watching this live recording, hadn't mentioned it on stream a couple of times up to this point. Speaking on the game's absolutist morality system, McElroy brother writes, quote, "Where Undertale's take on morality succeeds is not how it rewards your decisions, but how it makes you feel while you're making those decisions. I found myself endeavoring to save the characters of Undertale, not for mechanical reasons. I wasn't just grinding my way to the ending or content I wanted to see. Rather, my efforts were purely emotional. I really genuinely liked the characters of Undertale. I liked the world, and I didn't want to do anything to hurt it." End quote. So, here's the real reason I've been putting this video off for so long. I have a very strong emotional response to Undertale. And when I feel this strongly about a work of art, when I regard it with so much sentimentality, I find it really hard to judge it on a critical basis. I have a hard time articulating what moves me about the art for games like this, because when I open my mouth to do so, all that comes out is usually And now that I've sat down and thought about it, that in itself was truly the thesis of this whole project. It's really, really powerful when a piece of media can resonate with you with so many people in so many ways, and really digging into how it managed to do that is an exciting little challenge. Undertale does seem very off the shelf nowadays, with its ironic humor, its fourth wall breaking, its retro aesthetic, its cartoonish cast of characters. But it's these exact characters that have invited me and so many other people to regard the game with as much affection as we have. The people in this game are cartoonish, sure, but that's what makes them memorable. All their quirks and vulnerabilities, their struggles and their triumphs. Beneath all that is a game that is charming, delightful, experimental within and apart from the medium of video games in general. It's not exactly revolutionary, but it made a splash so big that we're still feeling the ripples 10 years later. It's at this point that I feel a little compelled to break the script that I had. I went back through Undertale's official Tumblr that it had back in 2015, and I went to go find some of Toby Fox's early posts on that now defunct blog. On September 14th, 2016, a year after Undertale came out, he posted the following. Quote, "Though it was released almost a year ago, I have the same opinion of it. It's about an 8 out of 10 niche RPG game. If you like the characters and the humor, you'll probably like it and forgive it for its flaws. If you don't, you'll probably hate it." Surprisingly, there are so many people who like this type of game. Though I did work hard, there's definitely a lot of luck involved in having a game become this popular, so it wouldn't surprise me if I never made a game as successful again. That's fine with me though. Not only did I not expect this level of popularity, but initially I was afraid of it. I didn't want Undertale to become tiring for people or become spoiled before anyone even got a chance to play it. Early on, this was probably excessive, I even tried to contact certain Let's Players to tell them not to make any content about it. But the game became very popular, unavoidable even. At the height of its popularity, not liking the game felt like a cardinal sin to many fans online. In reaction to these circumstances, others began actively hate the game, creating an endless whirlwind of discourse. Like a thunderclap to a small dog, all this attention stressed me out, and every time it seemed to die down, something revived it, such as the Game Facts contest, the award shows, bizarre theory videos, and so on. At times I wish I had a way to quell the attention. I felt a strange powerlessness and guilt for feeling stressed, when the success of the game should be something I'm nothing but ecstatic about. At the time, countless wonderful things were happening. People told me the game helped them through a difficult part of their life. Others told me that the game had made them laugh or cry or say, "I want to be kinder." Many young kids told me they wanted to create games or music because of it. And on a personal level, because of its popularity, I've been able to help myself and many people in my life, and hopefully in the future I can help many other people because of it too. So ultimately, it's a good thing that the game reached so many people, and I'm very, 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 very thankful to everyone that supported it, and everyone that helped me make it. Thank you. And thank you to anyone who has created fan works for this game over the past year. I've been in fandoms my whole life. I drew cave story characters in the margins of my 7th grade history class notes. So it's amazing to see something I created incites a similar passion in other people. Someday, Undertale will fade from people's minds. But I'm sure in 10 years, some kid who played Undertale will create a game that surpasses it. I look forward to playing that. Now that it is nearly 10 years since that thing was written, and many games have come out that may objectively surpass Undertale, it's really something that we're still talking about it now. I find it really hard to agree with Toby Fox's assessment that this game is like an 8 out of 10, because he's right. I forgive it for its flaws, and I feel very strongly about it. But I do, intellectually agree with that assessment, though. Undertale is not a perfect game. There are certain parts of it that are a little bit threadbare. There's definitely more that could have been done with this setup. It is a mostly united narrative, but when you look at what Toby Fox is capable now with Deltarune, and you go back and look at this game, it definitely shows its age, if such a thing is even possible. The fact that this game is so big, and the fact that it has, allowed Toby Fox to continue helping so many more people and continue to be successful, is just fantastic. As much of a masterpiece as I feel this game is, as truly special it feels, it's still the fucking warm-up somehow. We now know that Fox had been planning Deltarune long before he ever started Undertale. By his own admission, he straight up, flat out stated that he didn't want to release his dream project first. And that's not even hyperbole, the dream project thing. He has stated in interviews that the ending for Deltarune literally appeared to him in a dream once, and that inspired him to start making the game. He has taken this, however, as advice for future creators to follow his example, to not release their dream project first, right? Now, I still have some trouble wrapping my head around that, even now. Deltarune Chapters 1 and 2 are amazing, and I have no doubt that 3 and 4 will be too when I play them in a couple days, but we won't know how this game will truly end for potentially even more years down the line. We won't know the full extent of the lessons learned from Undertale that Fox will put to the test with this new saga. We just get to sit here and anticipate. The idea that Undertale was a learning experience, just a process of study, of refinement, is kind of insane to me. I understand what Fox means by this advice, though. If he went and made Deltarune first, then released it without honing his craft in the long years making Undertale like he did, then that worst version of Deltarune would simply be out there forever. Fox is just a guy in a room. Dude has a small team now, sure, but he doesn't have the resources at his disposal to overhaul a bad project the way No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077 redeemed themselves with big studio money behind them. No. Instead, we have Undertale to thank for everything good that Deltarune is going to give us. And it's really ironic in the end that there's such a strong theme in this game of letting go, of moving on from Undertale's digital world onto new experiences. When you destroy the world with Kara at the end of No Mercy, they tell you that it's time to move on to the next world, now that the slate is wiped clean. They can't understand why you'd come back to this one. After the true pacifist ending, rebooting the game prompts Flowey to suggest that resetting this perfect ending would be cruel to those who inhabit the game. That you should just let Frisk and their friends enjoy their lives. The more you play over certain interactions with Flowey over multiple resets, he will ask you point blank, don't you have anything better to do? Now, our time with these game worlds must come to a close eventually. We all have to move on to new experiences, and to treasure the moments we made, and the way the art made us feel. If we cling to the things we hold dear, we snuff out their flame. Undertale allowed Fox to move forward from his work with Homestuck, and now Deltarune is a step forward on from Undertale. Undertale's time has passed. And yet here we are, 10 years later, still talking about what it means to us, welcoming everyone else who finds this game along the way, like I did. Even after taking so long to change my mind about Undertale and actually get into it, I'm so glad that it's hit me the same way it did everybody else. The game is right. I have many better things to do. And yet I chose to come back. Maybe I can't let go of it. Or maybe the game really is that special. Thanks for watching, y'all. That would be the complete history of Undertale. As it is now, on June 6th, 2025, there will be more. This history is still not done yet. Deltarune still has yet to be done. When that is done, I will be back here to talk about this shit all over again. Enjoy the project that I make here. Understand that I do too, and I would love to continue doing these in a professional capacity. Donations to the Twitch channel and gifted subs to the Twitch channel really help for keeping this going. Everyone who subscribes to the Patreon, no matter what amount, really helps me do this. As of now, I am working a day job, running this channel, doing regular streams, writing shit for videos like this, writing shit for my own projects. I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I would love to continue doing those things. But if you've gotten this far in this video and or Twitch stream, it's really cool that y'all like to listen to me talk so much. I'm going to try to commit to doing these solo from here on out. I think I prefer this format. I like being able to share these experiences with someone going in cold, like on mic with me. It's nice to be able to do these. Just sat down, cameras here. It's one-on-one with chat. Y'all get to chime in and say some cool shit that can get added to the script as we go. Allows me to flex my own writing and my own takes a little bit better. It's good. So there will be more of these in this format. In the works is a video about Cyberpunk 2077, the influence, what it means to make a game that's named after a subgenre, and its interactions with like its tabletop origins and all that shit, and some other stuff. I'm back to writing my book more. If you're on the Patreon, you can see some of my last updates for the second draft of the book that I started more than 3 years ago. No, fuck, it is almost 4. It is like 4 years ago to the month. God damn. Oh, man, it sucks that I haven't finished it. But, yeah, you can go check that shit out. It's fun. If you like hearing me talk about fiction, you should go read my fiction. And that is going to do it. I thank you all so much for watching this. I am going to go take a nap for a year now. Bye-bye.